Okay, I guess I'm going first. I'm Bruce Spangberg. I teach horticulture, and my project was HRT 103, which is Introduction to Plant Science. And this is actually the 5th course that I teach that I've now converted to get away from textbook, and this was the most challenging. My process basically was to take the existing syllabus and not change anything as far as order. In fact, this course just got approved again for articulation, so I definitely did not want to change anything because they're really picky on how they wanted it. So what I did is essentially looked at each section, and I divide my course into 4. This particular one has 4 sections. So this first one, weeks 1 through 4, basically sliding in each reading then essentially is a chapter that was in the old book. And what I'm relying mostly on, just like I did last spring when I was here with Introduction to Horticulture, is I'm using mostly University Extension publications. Those of you familiar with Extension, they're all peer-reviewed. They're all done by mostly PhD specialists. And the challenge is with this course compared to Introduction to Horticulture, which I did in the spring, this course is not as applied. It's more the pure science, so you have to be careful on some of those publications and make sure they're not just, here's how you prune a tree or here's how you plant turf or whatever. So there are a few that were very good, that were fairly new. And then I also had access to a disc I had gotten several years ago from University of Wisconsin Botany Department, which gave us permission. It's mostly images, and that was the biggest challenge, to find things like microscope images, which you typically don't see in extension publications. The challenge was getting all that organized. That's what I spent most of the time this week. Most of the extension publications are pretty easy to find. So it's worked out pretty well. It's definitely an improvement over the book. The book was good that we had. New it was $245, used is $175. And there were a few chapters I did not use, so there's always that challenge. So this is more concise, it's better on the material. And I still need to add a couple. I haven't completely finished one of the sections, but right now I've got, it's about 320 pages, slightly smaller than the previous book, but it has 26 authors instead of 1, which I look at as a big advantage, just like for Introduction to Horticulture and also for soil science. You're looking at people that have written a specific publication on a specific topic that they're into, versus one author that's looking at all those things and then putting their own impression on it. So it's a big improvement. I'm going to pilot this in the summer and then fully adapt it in the fall. And we typically have, we will have at least 2 sections a semester, spring and fall. There is another instructor I brought on this spring. He'll be using the same material starting in the fall. And I did do a quick summary, just like I did, some of you saw this when I did last spring, the camp. I just summarized those 5 courses. And just to give you an idea now, these 5 courses are all part of our associate degree. They're all core courses, so Introduction to Horticulture, Plant Science, Soil Science, Plant Problem Diagnosis, and IPM. I've got the costs there. The previous textbook, all these now have a cost of 0. They're all going to be in Canvas. This one, as well as soils, quite a bit of it I also give hard copy because we're using it in lab. So it's difficult, not everybody has a computer with them and smartphones and that kind of stuff. But the conservative estimate now, per student, the savings is $818 just on those 5 courses. We've also, in our department, done several of our elective courses. We've also gotten rid of textbooks, so that savings is even higher than that. And the other big point, definitely, I could say for all 5 of those courses, that the textbook material is definitely better than it was with the previous textbook. So it's kind of a win-win, win in the pocketbook and win in the educational material. Any questions? Yeah.
Bruce, there's at least 2 more advantages I can think of,
Okay.
one of which I mentioned to students. You mentioned the committee factor and of course the cost, and the expertise factor, but also you're training the students in how to access and use the extension materials, which everyone in the field should know, everyone
Right.
in the agricultural field should know,
Mhm.
like what those are. And you're introducing them because they're gonna see all those names of all those experts to all the experts in the field. So, wow.
Yeah, that's a good point. Any other questions?
Well, they're getting stuff together. I can tell you the 3 courses we kind of looked at. One was HFE 150, which was in contemporary health issues. Second one was HFE 161, personal fitness. And then by default, we were able to do a third one, 171, HFE 171, which is exercise science, anatomy, kinesiology. One of the things in the past with the health book, it's a very basic introduction, but information changes so quickly every year, particularly the statistical information that's represented. So we were a little annoyed that every edition we had would come out, and then within a year, the information would be out of date. So that was one problem we had. Second was the cost of the book was quite enormous, $130 for a contemporary health issue, which we found that we could find almost all the information more accurately and more up to date for free with many of the OERs, so that was very nice. In the personal fitness class, that's a class that a lot of our fire science and criminal justice students take to prepare them for like a power test and a combat test, which is required when they apply for their various careers. So we have a lot of those students taking class, and our book for that was about $109, and it had a lot of labs that were free and access labs, unlike perhaps even in grammar school, such as a pacer test, a mile walk, bench test, things like that. And it seemed an enormous amount of money to pay for stuff that we could probably find online. And then the last one, 171, was basically an anatomy coloring book, which is only about $20, but we found an OpenStax anatomy and physiology book that went well beyond what we needed, a better, more up-to-date, and from what I heard from Julie, we might even be able to use that stack, maybe even get some kind of grant if we can use it on a more consistent basis, which would be phenomenal.
What was the other book we used for the class? Are we using something else?
For 171, we're going to keep that one because we use it for the course, the ACSM book. So we don't know what we did for 171.
I think the biggest thing we found out is we could get down to go through the whole FIT program. We could get it down to about
2 books.
2 books.
So
And
whether
that
they're
was
doing,
huge.
whether they're doing the FIT 1-year program or the 2-year associate's degree, we brought it down now to 2 books.
One of the things Jim and I have been struggling with is we'd have a friendly argument, is we'd look at all these books and I'd say, okay, but that book covers the same stuff as this class does. Like, why do we have 5 books and we can cover exercise, you know, the structure of the muscle with 1 book? Like, why can't we keep reusing the book over? So I think he even said after this week,
I think part of it was mine, of the people in our department, like Elaine works real close with Vicki, and Vicki's very good, very tech savvy. And I just kept saying, you know, we can't find this stuff. It's not going to be stuff we can find for free, you know, and it's basically being lazy and, you know, a little pig-headed maybe. And after I looked at her and Elaine's stuff last semester while they worked in the same office with me, I'm like, wow, not only was it better, but it was free and it was accessible. So Elaine encouraged me to take this, I think, to say, come out of the primitive times and get into the current times, which it really did help. As far as organizing even our shelves, our Canvas shelves now, we have a master shelf for all the instructors to use, which will be really helpful because we often do, you know, go from exercise psychology to kinesiology and anatomy. We have a broad area, but to have a master shelf with all this free material is just wonderful. And it's not, like I said, it's usually more up to date than
so
the
I
other
think by
times.
fall, we'd like to have 150, 161, and 171. Pretty much like the goal, hopefully by spring and summer, I'll be able to like have, as you see, they're already up there, but either have their lessons in there and then we can work together on filling those lessons, like having more topics and then working together to find that. But the actual assignment, I should say, was supposed to be 150, which what I really enjoyed, I found an open, which was really nice about this one. This was a whole course on the class that we take. We teach contemporary health issues here, what I thought was really interesting is, we were talking a little bit, looking at somebody else's contemporary health issues, we found that there might be some things possibly we need to be adding to our class, which was kind of neat, I thought. And then making sure, Lane and I teach women's health issues, we were able to pull some things from this class that were really, especially I thought from a cultural perspective, we might have been not having, we talked about. So that was kind of cool. I also liked it because it was set up differently than we had done in the past, and I really thought it was really cool how they set up their class. So this kind of became more of a template for the next 3 classes as well. I thought it flowed a lot better than what we are currently doing. So that was huge. I have to say that I was glad. This is the second time I got to do this. I don't know if the full-timers can take it twice, but I got to take this twice. And I would say it's completely changed how I teach in the classroom, like just organizing things and getting material, and in our meetings, like when I said I'm sharing information, I think now he has a little different perspective on it, like
Totally.
on how to do this. So it was really worth.
Yeah, I think many instructors, I've just been teaching from a book for so long, and I'm so used to that. It's become comfortable, and it's time to open your eyes and say, wow, like she said, we completely reorganized the way we present the health material from a more current standpoint. Instead of just, well, I've got the PowerPoints, why would I not?
That's what he said to me. Every single time we'd have a meeting, he'd say, where are you going to give me a PowerPoint? I'm like, you already know the material. You know it better than you realize you know it. You just put the PowerPoint up there, and you don't even, you look at the topic and then you start talking about it. You're so used to seeing that you think you need it like that.
We have PowerPoints for a semester too.
Can we go over our 8 minutes? I'm sorry. Wait,
We'll talk about our costs real quick.
I'm going to write it on the board since I didn't.
You ready?
Yeah.
So we had our Health 150 class. It was $130. We averaged 50 students per semester, so that was a savings of $6,500 per semester.
How much was the semester saving?
$6,500. For HFE 161 personal fitness, we average anywhere from 25 to 30 students. So for per semester, that was $2,743.
How much was that? That book was like $109.
Yeah, it was $109.
This is a $109 book that all it has is labs that we all know how to do. Like if I walked into a room and somebody said, do an aerobic fitness test, like, okay, I'll grab this and give this. And I can do it just off the top of my head, and they're charging me $109 just because they have it in a thing. And I think that was the other thing Jim kept saying to me, well, where are we going to get the lab? I said, you know all the labs, and they're not copyrighted. An aerobic fitness test is just open. Like anybody can do it. We don't need to get permission to do an aerobic fitness test. So I think that was really eye-opening too, like that we're spending $109 for a book of labs that we could sit down in a half hour and write all the ones that we need to do. So that was really good. How much was savings for that?
$2,743 to $3,292, depending on if we have 25 to 30 students. So that's fine. And then the last one was Exercise Science 1, HFE 171. And a simple book like the Anatomy Color book, which was $20, ends up saving us $500 per semester by using the OpenStax.
And
Maybe
I
more.
think the last thing was we struggle a little bit is we don't have a national certification. So the problem is we have textbooks that have an ACSM, which is our American College of Sports Medicine, tilt to it. We have textbooks that have a National Academy of Sports Medicine tilt to it. And then the National
Strength
and
and
Conditioning.
Association.
So what happens is kids buy our ACSM book, let's say, but then when they leave, they go and get certified by a different organization. So they end up spending anywhere from $500 to $1,000 on testing materials. So that's where we struggle a little bit, is why are we making them buy a book that they're not going to test? Because there's 3 major organizations, and depending on what they decide to go into. So if we can get them to only having a couple $100s, they need the basic knowledge, but then all of those programs have their own vocabulary, if that makes sense. So if we can just give them the basics, then they can spend their $1,000 on their certification books.
Free study materials.
All right?
Okay, so I'm Cheryl Kordick, and this is Mary Van Opstel. We're both adjunct professors in the chemistry department. And our task this week was to come up with a single custom formatted lab manual for 2 of our courses that are high enrollment, which is 164 Introductory Chemistry and 165, which is General Chemistry 1. The issue is each one of those classes actually needs 2 different lab manuals. One which is from a open source, a Flynn catalog, which allows us to reproduce those types of things, and that's just a couple of dollars from reproduction costs. The published copyrighted material is a significantly higher cost. For the 164 class, the textbook, the lab manual, which only contains like 4 or 5 labs in it, is $20, and in the Gen Chem 1 class, it's even higher, it's about $35. And again, a pretty significant cost because you can't rent them and you cannot, the bookstores will not buy them back. So the students have them and they're stuck with them regardless of what happens. If they drop it or whatever, they're stuck with this book. So our task was to replace those copyrighted labs. And we looked at different open source resources. We looked online for all these different things. And what we ended up doing was rewriting most of the copyrighted labs so that, or amending them to a significant extent so that we are allowed to go ahead and reproduce those. We also took the Flynn labs that we do have access to, and we actually formatted everything in a standard format. So when our students go, all they have to do is buy an in-house reproduced lab manual that is completely standardized. Every lab looks the same. It goes from start to finish. Previously, they had to go to the syllabus and figure out what lab they were doing in a particular week and then coming in and figuring out which lab manual it was in, and most students did not know where to go for these sorts of things. So cost-wise, our estimates of savings at this point is this spring we have 168 students enrolled in Chem 164 at $19.50 per lab manual. That's a savings of $3,276. There's about 50 students in the general Chem 1 class, and at $35, that's a cost saving of $1,680. So it's going to be a significant reduction in cost for them, and at some point, hopefully, we can next work on the textbooks as well.
So just a note on, the biggest goal was to obviously eliminate, and some of the labs we completely rewrote, so they're our own, and we'll be able to make some of those available in Canvas Commons, and put perhaps a CC thing on it, because we wrote it versus just adapting. So some of them we have adapted to just be in-house, so we may not be able to, we can't give it to anybody else, but you know, some of these companies are letting us use it based on, we purchased it once. And the other thing is that all the labs look really different. You have one that looks like this, one that looks like this. We're gonna actually put it all in one lab manual so they can purchase it, and as Cheryl said, very easy to read. And the other thing about accessibility is that these were not available online for students. They weren't even available to us as instructors. So our hope is that we'll have PDFs, we'll have Word documents. So for accessibility, if we need to provide them on Canvas to students who need it, or to change the font size, or to provide it in some other way that they can get it versus just having to always get it in the bookstore. And maybe in the future to eventually have them on Canvas as well, so that students can access them that way rather than, you know, having a physical copy. But we'll kind of see how that goes. And everybody will be using these, so my section will pilot this all the new labs and everything this spring. And Cheryl might do 1 or 2 of them just to make sure that they're working. And then in the fall, all the instructors in all 7 sections of 164 will implement it. And then the 165 labs, so we didn't talk about those too much, but General Chemistry 1 has a couple that we replaced. And those either will be piloted this spring, just kind of even if we run it as instructors, and then those will be official in the fall as well. So by next fall, we should be able to eliminate all the copyright costs. And that's a pretty good savings and more convenient for everybody involved. And so we still have to write the instructor manual kind of for this as well, so that all the instructors know what what the new labs should do, because these labs have been the same for years, and so everybody kind of just knows how they work. And kind of learning from this is that there are thousands of chemistry labs online, and every school just puts a PDF up, but you can't tell if it's OER, you can't tell who wrote it, you can't tell if they just copied it from a publisher and didn't put anybody's name on it. So I was really hopeful that I'd be able to find a lot of labs, because I found a lot, but then once talking about Creative Commons, we decided just to rewrite our own or adapt from a school that I've talked to some other schools that allowed us to use theirs. But a lot of them, so it's kind of frustrating to be like, look at all these good labs, but we don't know, and you'd have to go contact the instructor. So that was kind of the most frustrating thing, I think, is that I was a lot more hopeful that we'd be able to find things, and we also teach introductory chemistry, which some of the labs are a lot harder. But being a part of this is very motivating to see that people really do care about this. And, you know, we're always frustrated in the sciences because the textbooks cost an enormous amount of money. So even starting here and being able to reduce this, there's hope that, as I can see everybody else is cutting out their textbooks, that maybe there will be something for chemistry as well. I really, this was an awesome experience.
And on a personal note, I have to say that I have 2 children in college right now. One is just starting at MCC here. And I'm so happy that this college is actually making this a priority, because his tuition bill for 13 credit hours was $1,700. His textbook cost was $650 for 4 classes. That's like 30-some% of the overall tuition. And one of the common complaints I get from students is that it's too expensive, what can we do? Especially when you consider that many students are coming here to reduce their overall college costs as well. So this is a great idea, and I hope it's very successful in the future.
I saw a request, and it wasn't a complaint, but it was a student who's having to have their textbook materials translated because they are a blind student. And so we have to get the text, and then we have to enter them into, what's the software? I forget what it's called.
It's the ADA compliant. Yeah.
What's that?
It's the ADA. Yeah.
Right, so we create the ability for those to be spoken text. So there's a class taught by an adjunct, 5 texts, using 1 or 2 chapters from each text. And these texts have been around for so long, right? They're ancient literature. So they are available free everywhere. And yet, we were asking the student to go purchase 5 textbooks, of which a chapter will be used from each, and then we were going to go through and translate all of those. And it's just ridiculous, right? I don't blame that adjunct, but I want that adjunct to know about what's going on here, right? So that they can go out and get those for free, and then we can do the translation and save that student a ton of money for a class that, of course, you know, they just didn't need to go out and purchase these things. So for every victory, there is somebody else just waiting out there to hear that we can do this. But thank you for, we need more and more adjuncts to participate.
Hey, Jerry. So the class that I was looking at this week is Music 151, Music Appreciation, which is by far our biggest class. We run generally 5 sections of it. I teach 2, Mike Hillstrom teaches 2, and Tom Seria teaches 1. We teach it both online and face-to-face, and currently we're using different books for those. So that's another thing that we kind of wanted to look at. So the big cost for a music class is licensing the music, right? And the newer and the more relevant to the students a piece of music is, the more it costs to license it. So what happens a lot of time is the textbook companies don't put the new music in. I've got an American music textbook where they say in the introduction to the book, we don't talk about Elvis because that's too expensive, right? Go look it up. So, you know, that's something to keep in mind. How does the book address this? So what's the biggest repository of music in the world? YouTube, right? That has more music than any library, than any collection now. Now, YouTube is problematic though, right? There's 2 big problems with YouTube. One is accuracy. Let me give you an example. I'm from a family of folk musicians. My great-grandfather was recorded from the Library of Congress. He was a very well-known fiddler. If you look him up on YouTube, and his name was Clester, if you're looking for boy names, if you look him up on YouTube, this is what comes up. Now, if you think that's my great-grandfather playing the fiddle in Kentucky in 1952, that is a song that he wrote. That has been slowed down and distorted and changed and put with this, Steve Shelley calls this the stogie-sucking clown video. But so that's a problem, right? It's irresponsible for me to send my students out and say, go find a recording of Monteverdi's Orfeo on YouTube, because they can find probably not something this ridiculous, but maybe something close. So that's problem one with YouTube. The other problem is that it's really sketchy, a lot of this from a legal standpoint, right? And that leads to takedown notices in the middle of the semester, and this thing that I've told my students to watch is no longer there. So that's the two big concerns, is one, the quality, and two, the legality. So all the OERs for music, and there are several available, all of them use YouTube as their listening examples. And so what I did was I found an OER that I otherwise really like, and this is my Canvas shell. This was created by the University System of Georgia. This is an initiative that they have. The state universities in Georgia are trying to get down to zero cost whenever possible. They're bringing in faculty from all of the state university system, and this is the music textbook they've created. I like it because, and Kate, I told you I was going to say this, it's a book, right? It's the bookiest book. It's just like a textbook. It reads just like a textbook. I looked at some other ones that were more like a Canvas shell, and I thought my students wouldn't appreciate that as much. So this is basically is a book. You can buy it in paperback. It's free. If you PDF, it's CC licensed, all that. But there is a paperback option available if that floats your boat. There's also one thing that I like about this, talking about accessibility. A professor went through and created a page of more accessible versions of this book. So the PDF is not great for that, but if my students click here, there are all these different EPUB dyslexic, there's a Kindle version, straight HTML, which is really easy to work with, is my understanding. So all of these different, more accessible versions of this book are available. Now, the downside to this book, the thing that makes me uncomfortable, is that it uses YouTube links, and this book was created in 2015. Some of them are already dead. So, for instance, if you go to, let's see, Orfeo, right, there is the dreaded takedown notice. They have been reported. So what I did is, in my Canvas shell, I curated, to use a very hipster term, I curated the listening, and I went through and I checked all the listenings, and not only did I make sure the links worked, I said, is this the best place to get this? So for each chapter of the book, I created a page of listenings. Now if you look here, you can see some of them are YouTube videos, some of them are YouTube playlists, because Mendelssohn's Elijah is a 2-hour piece of music. This has sections in it. Some are CC licensed MP3s that I have embedded into Canvas, and some of them come from other sources. For instance, Stars and Stripes Forever, the United States Marine Band. That is a government organization. Their recordings are free. So that is a very stable link compared to YouTube. So I went through and I did this for every chapter in the book. This took the majority of my time. Another thing that I created, Jim would appreciate, is PowerPoints that we don't really need. But I too am very used to having my PowerPoint to remind me, oh yeah, this is the day that we talk about whatever. And so I went through and created PowerPoints to correspond with each chapter. And what I like about the book also is that it has the open source or CC license visual examples as well. I embedded the listening guides for them so the students can follow along. And I changed, though, the YouTube links to the links that I'm using so the students can access this from home as well. I really like this book. I like this book better than the book we were already using. I've been texting Mike Hillstrom all week telling him how excited I am about this book. He's sick of it. But I like the structure of it. I like that it talks about video game music. That's something our students have been asking about that books just generally don't address. And I'm not comfortable talking about because I'm real behind on that. So that's nice. So I'm very excited about this. I'm going to start it in the fall, and I have 2 sections. Mike Hillstrom is going to do his 2 sections in the spring. He wants me to guinea pig it for a while first. So we'll eventually have at least those 4 sections. Then we're going to try it with the online section after we work the kinks out a little bit. So numbers-wise, the book that we're using right now costs $126, and it includes online access to the listening. The thing that really made me upset about this book is the online access is included with the new book. With the used books you have to pay, and the used book plus that extra fee costs more than the new book. So the publisher had made used books obsolete, and I thought that was very environmentally irresponsible and kind of just a jerk thing to do. So $126 was the fee for the new book. This one is going to be free. So if I have 50 students a semester, that's $6,300 a semester, and then the next semester with Mike's 2 classes, that will double. So we're looking at, $12,000 per semester difference in textbook cost for this class. And it's going to be better because we can pick our own music and our own, make our own decisions about that. So we're really excited about it.
Can I ask a question? Sure can. Do you get a sense that the textbook people are getting the message? Like you guys go, you present at a conference, 2 other colleges are running camps. It's cheaper, it's better, and we're up to date. It gives them, students, the training on how to find the information for the rest of their lives. I mean, are they getting the message that it's like?
Well, what message? These are for-profit companies.
I know, but
So
are
the
they?
message is, we're trying to put you out of business.
I know,
That's the only.
But are they getting the message?
Well, but what I'm saying is, they're a for-profit company, so they're gonna try to create another revenue stream. I mean, that used book was.
Is that what they'll do?
is a
They'll
great
just,
example.
yeah.
They
Well-
will either go out of business, right? Or they're not gonna be able to change enough to keep everyone employed, to keep doing what they're doing. It's an obsolete model, right, that they're gonna try to hang on to. There is no message other than you need to stop doing what you're doing.
Right.
Well, I don't know, are they getting that message? I don't know. Just like fortunately, before we started this, I had a conversation with Bob where I said, Bob, we're gonna lose a lot of revenue that we have counted on. Are you ready for that? That's the only bottom line, not that we're gonna soften or whatever. Bob, our goal is to reduce this revenue line down to nothing almost, right? And then we will have a bookstore that sells other things, right? And we don't rely on them for bookstore for book sales. That's the goal. And when these numbers just knock me down, right? I love it. Ridiculous.
The book companies are already panicking because I got an email last week from Kendall Book Company, and her sentence, I am not a textbook. And I'm like, so she wanted to know, so I talked to Sue Malone, she's going to try to sell you, but I want to talk to her, and I'm going to have an issue with Pearson now, because Pearson is getting real sneaky. So they are all panicking. So it's not just here.
I'm just real curious how your class works.
Yes, how do you teach?
And what your name is. And I'm like, great, why were you curious about that like 10
Do
years
they feel
ago?
I don't know, I
You know,
teach nutrition? No, I don't.
In the last year, I've had more folks try to get in a meeting with me around textbook sales than ever before, right?
That's what-
So if you're saying,
They're
are
getting
they
the message.
panicking, they're panicking.
Yeah.
You bet. You could. I mean, that's the right response for them.
I actually thought your question, Pat, wasn't about what should be obvious, that the book manufacturers are panicking and the advent of Amazon putting Barnes & Noble and Borders out of business is one of our business models we teach in our classes. But I really am interested, not only as a parent of 2 kids that are in college in different academic systems, but also just looking at our resources. Julie's always big on saying, you know, hey Mary, this is the Tidewater is our place to go get stuff. Well, it's not just Tidewater anymore. We can go to Harvard and get some of these things. But it's interesting to me in terms of competition, what colleges are not responsive to this. I was sharing with our faculty, I have a daughter at a certain local private school, and she has 17 textbooks for this class they want her to get, and they're not doing this camp. So, I mean, I competitively, you and Julie or whoever's going to the conferences will know are we trying to get people that are going to Harvard to come to MCC? Probably not, but do we know what's going on in the Chicago market to know if, my book, this big book, $300 book is still what they're offering at Harper. Is it still what they're offering at CLC? Are we going to offer a competitive advantage here too?
Yes, I do believe that there will come a time when we can say, as a competitive advantage, we have reduced our footprint of cost to students to X. And these huge classes like music and preach are going to go a long ways toward that, right? These chemistry labs. When we get to the point where we say, overall, we've reduced our footprint to X, and our next big goal is to reduce it to X, I believe somebody's going to look twice about one choice of college versus another. Again, I think it can be an absolute leader in our marketing strategy. Because still, when we're using the Student Success Fund, a new fund from the foundation to help students who have a, make or break financial situation, buying a textbook is the most popular thing that we're doing over and over, right? I just heard Chris yesterday say he's going to go buy a text for somebody. These are things that keep people from enrolling or cause them to withdraw from the class. So yeah, we're very close to being able to go out and say, here's the percentage reduction overall, and here's where we're headed.
I have a quick question. Are we, Julie, maybe you can answer this, I know there's been talk about this, but are we going to be able to post, like if Deb's section, there's multiple sections, or the chemistry, is she going to be able to post, will the bookstore be able to post hers class section as zero cost, and then it's kind of scary, peer pressure, but somebody else teaching the same class is going to have a $300 or $500 book cost. Are we going to be able to start at the bookstore?
We already are.
Yeah, we
already are.
Peer pressure, right?
It is very big peer pressure.
I think that'll help.
Shall I begin?
Yes.
Okay, so this is my Canvas shell. I put the materials for this project in this. I actually have been, traditionally I teach a double section, a single section, and 3 labs. In the fall I'll be doing 2 sections of Bio 263, and then I'm doing the new Heredity, Ethics, and Society, which actually I have Creative Commons textbook for that, so it's no cost at all for the digital part. In this one, I organized this into modules, and I put a lot of stuff in my Canvas shells anyway. And so I'll generally move those over, because you can't really do too much organizing as far as different font and everything. But anyway, so this is how I organize. I have a blended class, and so there's a lot of stuff in there. In here, I have links relevant to the course, and they can actually use this. Before some of the instructors started requiring Pearson, I actually was able to get some of the Pearson stuff for free. I actually made videos, and there's a lot of stuff on McGraw-Hill that's really free. So anyway, Mike just showed me that if students want to get a free copy of Microsoft Word 365, they can if they don't have access to PowerPoint. So, and then we had a Facebook page for AMP2, and I had students were like showing everything in there, and that's kind of helpful. And this is that interactive website where students can practice questions. It's free, it's still out there. Kelly Barnett actually made a histology on the fly. And this one, this is a really cool site. I'm not going to, belabor it, but they can actually look at histology slides, and they can, let's just do this real quick. They can, it's interactive, and this is totally free. Whoops, it's not working. But anyway, it was working. I'm not really sure why, if there's any, but they can actually go close up on the slide, and you can see all the cool features in there. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but anyway, it was working in the other room. So anyway, what I've done for this particular project is I put it into here, which I don't have it published right now. I'm thinking of piloting this with students this semester and asking them, how do you like this material? This is actually, let me just first go to, let me just show you the materials. Right here is, they can actually purchase for the textbook they don't have to purchase it if they want it digitally. It's the A&P OpenStax textbook, and this is the link to it. If they want to buy it, it's $52. Last week, or like when we first started, it was $46. It's just gone up to $52 on Amazon for a hardbound book. But otherwise, they can get it all digitally for free. So that could be the textbook, which would cost nothing, unless they, again, if they want to purchase the hardbound book, it costs them $52. So then here, for a lab, I would be making the lab manual, and for the first part of the lab manual, it's actually a Creative Commons, a lot of great pictures that can be labeled. There's one that's the lab manual, where the students will fill in the blanks, and then there's a reference, and I'll show you some. I actually had to edit it a little bit, which really I discovered in A106, they have the entire Adobe suite, so I was using the Adobe Acrobat Pro, and you can majorly edit PDFs, which is really cool. So I was able to take out a few pictures, actually pass this around. These were some of the jokes that he had in there, which highly appropriate, so I took them out because I didn't feel comfortable leaving them in there. So you can just get rid of pages from the PDF. And the Creative Commons, this source, he said you can modify anything like that. So I took those out. So anyway, this is the, actually opened it up down here. Let me see here. This is actually the reference that he had posted. This was Laird Sheldall at Mount Hood Community College with the Creative Commons licensing. And I'll just to show you a little bit of what they have. This is the reference. So he's telling giving material here. The students can just use this online. As far as for the lab manual, they don't have to, they could just use digital too, and they'll have all the colors in online. But then through the bookstore, they can purchase the lab manual. Let me just go through here. These are all the things that actually illustrate. And then for their actual lab manual, I combined it with one that Janice Young, who retired a number of years ago, she had done one that was entirely in black and white. She didn't have photos. There was some really nice drawings in there. But anyway, this would actually be the lab manual, where the students would actually work on materials. I put a little cover sheet on there. And then this is the lab manual that goes with that reference. And you can see there's like really nice big pictures that they can label as far as studying like body regions. And then they have all the tissues, and this is all in color. They don't print it out in color through the copy shop, but in black and white, they could get it sold through the bookstore for $6.50. So anyway, this is the entire lab. So I substituted for the sentence for memorizing the handle, it's just something more appropriate. So anyway, that is the manual. This is actually we've been using this one for years. Price probably went up already, but oops, sorry about that. Okay, so this is through Amazon for $3.57 and up. They can get $3.47. They can get the spiral bound. It's all in color. It has all the tissues and everything in here, and it's really good quality photos. It looks like they don't. There's tissues. There's everything in here too that they can use. So that would be $3.57 with the lab book, which is $6.50. And then that would be $10. Right now, I summarized the cost savings in a little document. I'm going to put this up for this class, but it's not published. So the total cost for the digital copies of everything in color are free. For the lab manual, black and white, with the color digital access, including, this is what Sue Malone told me, that it would cost in the copy shop about $4 to $5, and it'd be another $1.50 to do it bound with the front and the back and the cardstock, and then the 3-hole punch. So altogether, it would cost $10. If they wanted to get the OpenStax A&P hardbound book, they could do that too. But if they do it all just digitally, and then they have their lab manual, and they get that little lab, the color atlas, what they would be each student would be saving $415 right now, and this was right from Sue Malone. For the textbook bundle, it's Marie, it's $315 with the Pearson access code. And then they have a separate lab book from a different publisher. It was Hull's lab manual by a bunch of other authors. That's $165. They can't return any of it. So, and it is 2 semesters, but altogether it costs them $475 plus tax. If they were to do it this way and they didn't want the hard copy book, they would need to spend $10. With my classes, with 2 classes, they would be saving altogether would be saving $22,320. I had to keep checking that because I'm like, wow. But anyway, even if they wanted to buy the $52 book, it would cost them $413 instead of $475 times the 48 students. We have a max of 24 students for lab. They'd be saving close to
$22,000 just for your 2 sections?
Yeah, because for each student saving
For 2 semesters, right?
they can do that for the whole year.
22,000 a week is for
Yeah, for
your
the
2
year.
sections.
For two sections.
Right.
Because of each student, you know, I was like, wait a second. 400, they're paying $10 instead of $475. Each student is saving $465 times 48. Somebody wants to redo that and give them it. It should be right. Now, the students that want to buy the book, you know, that's up to them. Another $52, but even if everybody did that, there would still be a savings of $19,824.
And when are you going to implement this?
Well, in the fall, right now I kind of like to pilot it, show my students, you know, how do you like these? Because the main argument that the other instructor had with, particularly Janice Young's book, is it's all black and white drawings. So, but with the color photos, let me just, this one would be the actual laboratory manual. And this is the one where it begins with a lot of color photos. Basically, this only covers A&P 1. And then at the end, I added some of Janice's labs. I've actually written my own respiratory physiology, human cardiovascular physiology labs. Marla and I wrote that one together. So these are black and white right now, but I think with the color resources, it's okay to have something like this. I did give a link to some of the other sites out there that are free. So anyway, so the lab manual is not quite finished, but I'm teaching A&P 2 in the spring and in the summer, which is another place I could pilot it. In the fall, I'm doing 263. So that's A&P 1, so it'd make more sense to start with this with A&P 1 because they already purchased it for A&P 2. So that is the story. Any questions?
So first of all, I had a lot of fun this week. So thank you, Julie, for letting me in on this camp. I learned a lot. The first couple of days I was sitting next to Sherry. She was a great resource. And then I moved over, not because of Sherry. I moved to the next room because there are 2 monitors there. And so that was really, I think that's just really helpful, having 2 monitors and headphones. And, you know, this was for me long overdue because, I mean, when you teach the classes over and over and you just copy, paste, and so you don't really go over all these Canvas features, what Canvas can do for you. And so I built this course now, and I'm so thankful. Mike was there, and he helped me a lot too, and Cynthia was there too, so great resource people. And I had just fun working with Canvas and just really using the features and setting up this class. I teach German. There are 4 sections in German. My name is Sylvia Schmidt. There are 4 sections. The problem with the textbook that we have encountered in the language department, many students take only 1 course. Some move on to the 2nd section, and then the 3rd and the 4th. At the 4th level, very few are in it. So it's building up. That's how the classes are structured. So we have decided, I think we go back like 5 or 6 years to go with a textbook that has an access code with an online section where the students can go and speak and listen and all that. And the students didn't like that. They just didn't really necessarily use it that much either. And I have been frustrated for the last 2-3 years, and I thought this has to change. The textbook is way too much. The loose leaf book was $180 at the time with the access code. The access code alone was $80. So if you lose the access code, you buy the access code $80 again. It's only due for, it's good for 3 semesters. If you take 4 semesters, you gotta rebuy it. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So the new textbook now is at the cost at $306.95. So at the time, way back, we thought, well, that's a good deal because we can divide it by 4 semesters. But, you know, students will only take 1 semester. It just doesn't make sense. So this semester this was the first time that past semester that I said, don't buy it, get a used one. But the used ones are not cheap either, and you know how it goes with the new editions. They change pictures here and there a little bit, but they change all the page numbers. And so it's just annoying. So I keep my old edition, and students come with all kinds of editions. But you know, language learning is different because language, it's messy. You gotta move around, you gotta talk, there's all kinds of activities. And so the textbook does not really matter that much. It matters that students have fun, that they try to learn the language. So there are 4 aspects in language learning. They need to read, they need to listen comprehension, they need to read, so listening, reading, they need to speak, so speaking, and writing. Do you see all of them? So 4 of them, 4 aspects. And what's really problematic is to get a course set up where I can use assignments, exercise, finding resources that target these areas. And okay, listening, the visual, that's easy. I can find stuff on YouTube, I can find stuff all over, I mean, that's easy. Reading, that's easy too, because I can find articles, I can find all kinds of different things. Then the speaking and pronunciation, all right, so now there are some programs out there, I was able to find a few things. And then, what was that? Writing, okay, writing, I make those up, okay, that's easy. So I'm really happy what I've accomplished for this course. It's not perfect by all means, but it's a beginning, it's a start. I will implement this in the summer. And I do that. I'm really excited to do that. And the way it's set up, it's flexible because it could be a face-to-face, it could be a hybrid, and it also could be even online. And there are some apps now you may have heard of, like Memrise and Duolingo. So I've implemented those, and those are like interactive programs that you can work on your own level. So you just start and you can keep on working on your level. So there are a lot of good things out there, and the textbook was just too static. It was just not helpful for the students that they would take it out after class during the week, in the evening. And last semester I had students in my class, they would go every time before they go to sleep, they would go to Memrise and do a few things, like half an hour. That's their bedtime reading, right? So some people have these weird bedtime things, like some like to read computer manuals or whatnot, and they would do that. So it's just kind of encouraging to see that. So, all right, so my class, okay, I learned a few things with Mike, so Mike, you were really great. So this looks really good. I did shorten this. I had it a little longer. I've always shortened this, but I've learned so much with Canvas, and I'm just happy with what I did. So this is my modules, that's how I set it up. I have the overview and then just the different modules, and then at the end I added the resources, midterm final. And they could actually go through this and on their own, really. They would not need to, they don't need me really, because I have, in all these modules, I have included things they have to read here. So I indented that, what they have to read. these are the assignments on that side. And then at the end, they have like videos, or in other places they have games, they have quizzes. So stuff that I will count will be on this side. All the other stuff they can kind of do on their own. And that's how I structured that. I found a really great resource through the library, through the resource, open resource course. It was difficult to find one, but the one I found was really well structured, and I'm just happy. I'm just happy with what I did, and I want to do the other one too. I want to do German 152. Okay, Julie? So I'm just happy.
Is that your application?
Yeah, I'm just happy. So yeah, this is what I did this week, and so come in my class, learn German. It's fun. It's just fun. Okay. All right. Any questions? Oh, okay. So 306.95 times, between 14 and 18 students. So who is a mathematician here?
Is that a semester or?
A semester. Yeah. So 300 times. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I am a repeat camper, which either means I am extra special or just slow. You can decide either way. I did U.S. History 2 for this camp. I did U.S. History 1 for the last camp, and it was interesting to do. I think it was really valuable, so doing it a second time was great. I pulled up my U.S. History 1 shell because the challenge of doing this boot camp is getting everything done in a week and having it look pretty. It doesn't look pretty yet in the one that I worked on here. So it will be very, very similar. What I was able to do is I found a free textbook. Woo-hoo. Oh, it's fine. Go ahead. All right, so I found this free textbook. This is out of the University of Texas at Austin. And it's really cool for a couple different reasons. First of all, like this content, and again, I did U.S. History 2, but just to give you an example, this particular content in a traditional textbook is about 40 pages. In here, it's 6. Now, what I decided was there's really 2 ways to do history. You can do history deep or wide. We could waterboard students with tons of details and dates and remember this guy. What did Millard Fillmore do as president? We could memorize things like that, which I don't know. Something probably very important. Anyway, we could do that, but really, who cares? What do you do with that later? How does that impact a student's life? How does that help them become a better citizen of the world? What changes if they memorize all that stuff? So when I found this particular resource, I kind of fell in love with it because it is so much more concise. It allows us then to get deeper into the content and figure out why it matters as opposed to just spending all our time. And not that I like reading. It's not about reading, it's about what we do with what we read. So the way I have worked on structuring this course, and it will be U.S. History 1 and U.S. History 2 will be essentially the same aside from the content. And another cool fact to note is all our history courses have the exact same learning objectives, so none of them talk about Abraham Lincoln or the Vietnam War or anything specific. It's more about the skills that you come away with. So, and things like information literacy, like finding resources and being able to interpret events and discern bias and things like that. So really the information that happens in a period of history is really only the canvas upon which we're painting all of this comprehension. So once I realized that, it made life much, much easier. So in this course, they've got the readings, which again are relatively brief, and then I have spent all of my time this week getting more and more crabby every day as I do it, and Julie is nodding yes, because it's true. Creating quizzes to go along with the reading, because maybe it's different for you, but my students, I'm fairly confident, will not actually read the material if there's not some deliverable requiring that they do so. So I have created some quizzes, and because we are teaching this course face-to-face and online, and if all faculty end up using these courses, we're looking at 6, 7, 8 sections in a semester. You need a big pool of questions so they don't all just get on their phones together and do it as a team. So I've come up with pools of probably about 75, 80 or more questions. You can't count them when they get that high because Canvas doesn't let you, anything over 45, they stop telling you how many. And I would count with my little finger and then I would, okay, that's enough. So anyway, so I've come up with pools of questions in order to make sure that the reading is happening so we can actually spend our time doing more exciting things. So what I have come up with, and this is new, I didn't even know about this when I did the last presentation after the spring textbook boot camp. I planned to use a book that was thicker and cost a little bit more money, and then a publisher sent me this. And it's better because it's thinner. And, well, you know, I mean, honestly, when you buy a book and it's that thick, what's your first thought? Yeah, that's not the right answer, but yeah, Sherry goes, I'm not going to read it. But when it's thinner, it looks a little more approachable. And what I love about this is that these are primary sources. So these are things written by people at the time. There's this cute little political cartoon. I was flipping through it a few minutes ago. Cute little cartoon of President Johnson and the Secretary of War at the time on an escalator going up, talking about more troops in Vietnam, but we're remaining with we're keeping the same plan we've always kept, but the escalator's going up, which really says a lot. And looking at that from that time helps students to get a better understanding of what was happening in our country versus me just talking about it or reading some, you know, book that, you know, talking about all these people who are dead now that they don't care about. It helps them get a little more of a context for the information. So by having this OER and reducing costs, it would allow me to use this in the classroom, which is why I feel like we need a paper book. Not all of our students have access to an iPad or any other product where they could actually read this in class. So I want us to bring these things in and together kind of work our way through the actual content in the book. This book is $30 at the bookstore, but it's $9.99 on Amazon. I know. So it's $9.99. The cost of the books that we were using is $101. So potentially $101 to $9.99 if somebody's savvy. But it's important to note that this is the third year that we have used the same edition of the textbook that we're currently using. So my sense is by next year we would be forced into the new edition. So the savings will probably be even more dramatic because a used bundle is $101. So a new one with new content would probably be a good $150, $200. So again, I have put together the document maps, and then we won't use those for this. But anyway, then I've got my resources. I do have PowerPoints for each chapter. I've got a series of videos that are out there. YouTube history videos, just so you know, Paige, those don't disappear. So if you ever want to come to my side, it's all good over here. So anyway, I've got YouTube videos and other resources. The Library of Congress has some great materials. So I've tried to make the content a little more robust that way. But using this OER has allowed me to kind of shift the paradigm of how we teach history from the traditional let's read the book and talk about who died when to, again, figuring out how to make it much more useful for students. Yes?
So you use the crash course, there's we have those in A&P.
Yeah, I know, I've seen those, they're great. He does.
Oh, really fast, but I
Yes.
just listen, you can slow it down.
Yes. Well, you can also do the closed captioning and you can watch it 45 times.
Closed, yes.
Yes, and I find when I watch them 5 times, by the 5th time I'm still catching new stuff. But it's nice because it is a quick overview of everything that I'm trying to get addressed. And I find, in my opinion, the more opportunities we give students to learn in the way that they choose to learn, the more likely they are to actually do it. So it's not just forcing everyone to read, not forcing everyone to watch this one particular video, but giving them a wide variety. Any questions? Anything?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kate, and I teach this fantastically awesome course called Geology of the National Parks. I know. And woo! So this was, when this course was created, it was kind of a weird course because they came to sciences and said, some requirements have changed. We need you to offer science classes without labs. Students really like science classes without labs. And so they said, what can you do? And I was like, I have a great idea. This course is called Geology of the National Parks. doesn't need a lab, and we can introduce students to geology through the national park system. And then I started researching books to go along with this, and was terribly disappointed because each park basically could have the equivalent of its own book written about geology, and we want to just kind of baseline introduce students to that. And so I ended up kind of settling, unfortunately, for this book called Parks and Plates. And it's an okay book. I really hate the organization of it. It's not how I would talk about the parks, and I always found myself kind of jumping around in the book itself. So I knew that I wanted to garbage can the book anyway. So with that, I thought, okay, this is a great place to start. Thankfully, because the National Park Service is run by the government, anything that the National Park Service publishes is free for me to use because I've already paid for it with taxes. Isn't that fantastic? So I created, or basically spent the vast majority of the week finding resources and kind of set out a new organization for the class that I'm much more comfortable with. I've kind of broke it into parks that have similar geology and kind of similar geologic ideas behind them. And so what I have to say is that I found a ton of information. The National Park Service just publishes and publishes and publishes all of this great stuff for people to check out. And so I want to just show you guys how I kind of broke this down. For each park, I've basically linked to a really short video that the National Park Service has published on YouTube, so they can kind of get a really brief introduction to what does this park even look like before I have to talk to them about that park. And then I've broken it into two different types of reading for the students. So there's a short reading on each park, which just links them to the National Park Service's website. And typically it's about something really specific in that park, geology. Some of them have their own volcano webpage, some of them have their own glacier webpage. The thing that I really like about linking them to the geology website is that it's the most up-to-date information. There's a bunch of really cool graphics, and it's really, really short, because before the students come to class, I just want them to get a snippet, like what are we talking about today, what do I need to know about Zion National Park, here's kind of the geology bits for it. The other cool thing about linking directly to the National Park Service webpage is this gets the students invested in the Park Service's webpage itself, which when I started looking around on here, realized that there's tons and tons and tons of information on there. So at the end of the semester, my students finish up by doing a big research project about a specific park and then present that. So I like having them kind of come to the webpage and then being like, oh look, I can learn about geology, but I've also wondered about amphibians in Zion National Park. So it kind of gets them to experience that. The other great thing that I've put up on here is more in-depth reading. This is a PDF that was published, and basically almost every national park has one of these published. It's called the Geologic Resource Inventory, and these are giant. But there are really good things that I want to show the students in here. There's little snippets that are much shorter. So yeah, this is pages upon pages, but the vast majority of it they don't have to read. So in my lectures, basically, I might kind of link to maybe a page or two that is specific in these geologic resource inventories. So those are great. So again, short reading, get them to the website, more in-depth reading to kind of get them deeper into the geology that we're looking at there. So I have to say, when I first assembled all of this information, it was just this massive, huge, giant, disgusting thing. And I started pulling my hair out because I was like, I can't have this as this massive, giant thing. And so thankfully, Mike and I got together and he was like, why don't you do these great things called pages? And then you can organize everything based on pages, and the flow to it is much better. So thank you for that. So I've got all the modules. Eventually, I should say that I'm going to have my notes page published in there for the students. So I'm going to work on that all semester, and that this class is scheduled to go, well, I have them this semester, I should say, and then I'm actually going to use the new version of this textbook-less version in fall of 2018. So I'm going to spend some time completely redoing all the lectures for this because I want them to kind of flow in a much better way. One of the other things I should mention to you guys, I am more excited about this. I had a fully visually impaired student who took the course last semester, and was told that this book was really difficult for a visually impaired student to work through. So I know that and I ended up referencing him back to the National Park Service webpage a lot, and that was a very easy thing for his computer to read to him. So that helped with the whole accessibility thing there. So cost-wise, this book, brand new, cost students $124, and I typically have 2 sections of 24, so that's 48 students a semester. So my savings, and all of this stuff obviously is going to be free now, so my savings for students every semester comes out just under $6,000 that I'm saving the students. So that's that. Questions?
How many weeks is this class?
It's a full semester, 16 weeks.
While I'm logging in, I'm Mary Ambrose Durack. I teach in the business department with many of my colleagues, Sarah, Julie, Sherry here helping me get this underway. I was a history major undergrad, and then I attended Notre Dame's law school, and I teach here. I've been here a decade. I taught at Loyola and DePaul and Notre Dame at night, and I'm a full-time practicing attorney in the area. Show up. Maybe since I'm an adjunct.
You know, you have to have that. Just whatever you're signing on this.
That's my login. Am I logging in as a faculty here?
It's just the same as any time you log in. Do you always put the hyphen in there?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, you don't need that.
See if it works. It's working this morning, huh? Okay.
Yeah, you don't need that app.
Maybe it's Chrome. No, it's going this way.
Well, I'm already logged in. That's Julie. Yeah, I'm already logged in.
Okay. Let's try it again.
Yeah, just try it again.
I never do it with my hand,
Yeah, just whatever you're, like the same as your email. Without that.
yeah, I don't think that in your email, the hyphen. Let's try this.
Yeah, I think that at McHenry.edu.
Sorry about this, guys. I'm not eating up tape unnecessarily.
Okay.
Can you log out, tell me why I start? And then I'll log in through Canvas. Anyway, having given you this background, and I'm a history major as undergrad, you know I'm going to tell you about the history of how we ended up with this wonderful exercise here at the camp, cost reduction camp. When I started here 10 years ago, we started with a hardback book. It's what our competitors are using. It's a 23rd edition now. It is one of 4 textbooks that business law professors around the country use. It is over $300 at Harper, and we faced a challenge during the last decade that we were telling the students to buy a $300 book. But since we use it for 2 classes and we split the chapters, even though it's 2,000 pages, the way we run 240 and 241 is it's a survey of 3 years of law school. So can you imagine our students facing even taking this in a 16-week and 8-week format, blended, face-to-face? We do split the book, which is about all these books are about 2,000 pages in half. So you're talking about 1,000 pages, and you know, I keep telling them, okay, now you're through the first year of law school, you've surveyed the second year of law school, you're through the third year of law school, and yet there's still another course, 240, after this 241. We did manage to get, like I think Sylvia said earlier, about 5 years ago, an ebook, and the ebook reduced the cost from $300 to $200. It's still a behemoth of a book, and it's still a challenging amount of material. And the other thing that's a bit difficult about it is it's surveying law school. We have community college level students, some straight from high school. So we've adapted, or I've adapted, a bridge with exercises, and we try to bring it down to the level of students that we're getting. We try to make things practical. We try to, when we're talking about agency law, have them go online and file for escheat funds with the Secretary of State's office or the Treasurer here in Illinois, so that they are doing really hands-on activity instead of sitting there trying to memorize a lot of black letter law. The challenge is, and I'm feeling like this was a very successful exercise for the department and for the students here, is that this book situation has been resolved and that we can offer a book that costs nothing. So my success story is that we found an OER that works for both those classes, and it will also work for parts of 235 that we can offer them. And what's really neat about the book, if I can get on it and show you, is that we've adopted the book that I found has some of those practical exercises at the end of the chapter that I had to write myself. It also has some, what I would call, I've offered for our special needs students and our students that are really struggling, either coming back to school or coming straight from high school to us. You know, it has some what they call takeaways. And I had done my own, but now we have a book that does it so that when every professor teaches this, we have those kind of practice quizzes. Like if you say, oh, I'm scared to take all that vocabulary in law, I don't even know those Latin words. It's got some exercises right at the end of each chapter, so I really like the book. And let's see if I can get on and show it to you. Thank you, Julie, for getting it in. Fingers crossed. There we go. So I have 5 themes to that I got out of this camp, and hopefully you'll see that when you see my master that we came up with. Number 1 is collaboration, and I felt like being here, I not only was collaborating with a lot of people internally that made this a very successful week. It was nothing that I feel like as an adjunct I could have done in a week, ever. It would have taken me, when someone said, do you want to meet and do these camps every Friday? I would have not, with my work schedule, with my teaching schedule, meeting every Friday, have gotten through what I got through. I had Mike, who was amazing on organizing the resources that I had. You know, I've done some videotape lectures, and he helped me get them right in and get them in my shells. He helped me, like another person said, and maybe this is why Julie put me at the end, I got a page now for every class, just like our faculty member who said she got a page for the national parks. I got resources that Elizabeth, who's not here, who should thank the librarian, was able to pull up for me, and even more practical resources than the ones that I had developed myself. I had Christina here to say, when I get to this part, the biggest challenge for me, and I think for our department, is we got a lot to do about checking on licensing and corroboration, because we've got people that have been using stuff for 10 years that we either didn't check out, or somebody uploaded it and never asked the university of so-and-so if we could use it, and so that was the biggest challenge. But my success story is that the collaboration both internally with the staff here could have never happened for me in a week's time. I mean, in a semester's time, as effectively as it did in a week's time. And I would also say that the ability to collaborate outside and have people like Mike help me find, what other colleges were using things, or Julie and Sherry were funneling me OERs to look at frantically, going, can we find something that's free? I wouldn't have been able to do that unless we did it in this, as Sarah said, the waterboarding approach to meeting every day for a week. But I'm going to give you one of my favorite modules around this campus. So this is what I did. You'll see the chapters are first from the book. You'll see then, checking out some samples and forms that we have that the courts will allow. Then we put the quizzes in, and we pulled up the video that I've done, and 2 of the videos that I've done on lectures on there, and we managed to pull all that together. And that's what I call the collection phase of following the wonderful first step in this organization of this class. This is intellectual property, for example. And there you can see where Mike is helping me pull up my video that I taped on campus. Elizabeth is helping me pull up, making sure that the cases that we're using are okay. Mike's helping me pull up. I've had this problem with YouTube, like many of you guys also described, where we always had the Coldplay. I want the students to listen to the Coldplay song, and back to what our music person said, and I want them to hear that there's a big case with Joe Satriani. We actually found where somebody's got a YouTube video we tried to dig deep enough so that we could find one that didn't disappear, and I got a takeaway during the semester. So that gives you an idea of how successful the shells are going to be for people to use, and you're welcome. We put it all in 8 weeks, but we teach this class in 16 weeks, so whoever's teaching it in 16 weeks can just split this. And so I feel like it's a much cleaner product. I feel like it's a much more ethical product. I think that the issues with corroboration are my biggest challenges to finishing this. I won't be finishing this and offering it until we've nailed all that stuff down. I've ended up, sometimes on a goose chase, but I think it's one that's going to be beneficial for the integrity of MCC, finding out that a lot of my predecessors who taught this class, or people that are currently teaching parts of this class embedded in other classes, we need to make sure that what we're using, we have permission, or it's fair use, or that it's properly licensed. We can't just take things, and especially for putting it out in an OER, we just cannot be offering this and have somebody find a paper trail to us. I mean, since the class started where we were, face to face, there's a lot more give and take, and I'm sure Christina and I debated this yesterday about fair use. When you, say you bring the song The Sound of Music to class, and maybe MCC actually bought the rights to it for some musical that we had a long time ago, but now you're handing out the sheet music, or you're showing them the sheet music, doing that, and versus going about making sure everything's really okay is important to do, especially if we're teaching a business law class. So cost-wise, where are we headed with costs? We have 128 students over a year in 241 times $200, it's $25,600 savings for that. I see a process and I see a product. I had a choice over 2 different OERs. I went ahead and uploaded the one that also will cover 240, so somebody can come in and take care of 240 and get us probably the same amount of savings down the road. We also use parts of this book for 235, so depending on the number of students you add into this, it could be a big cost savings for the business department having gotten through this behemoth of a book. That's what I can tell you about cost savings. About the other component that I wanted to add to this is one about care. I think that the classes that we teach, and everybody heard today, has something to convey to students that we're trying to get to them having something that enhances their life, as well as teaching them, the black letter law or the rubrics of what we're offering here. And I think if you get to the personal examples, if you get to those interactive videos, if you get to those, drawings where they work with their hands themselves, if we show them that we can help people in all 4 modalities of learning styles, in addition to the special needs student. You can do that if you're really organized, if you're focused, if you have an OER and a Canvas shell that provides so much other supplemental information or access to them. And then we can demonstrate that we not only care about what it costs for them to come to school, but we actually care about them learning. And we actually want them to walk away after they've taken one of these classes and say, this really enhanced my life besides my career pursuits, and it enhanced my ability to get through school better because I learned in many different ways. It's only if you have a shell like this and as many tools like this, you know, at their discretion, where they can, you know, walk through this. Like, I have a real estate contract, and we walk through that. How many people don't? Everybody, as I say to them, don't tell me you don't live somewhere. I don't know how many students here are homeless, but you have a house, or you lease something, or you barter with your parents to live with them. So let's walk through the elements of that. You can offer all that in the format with the OER and with the Canvas shells in a way that I think just provides a super education for folks. But again, I could have never done this as an adjunct teaching without access to all of the MCC resources. And I have to say, I've been here a decade and I've never met many of the people I worked with today and this week. So I could have never done that just trying this on Fridays or, you know, on sort of on an ad hoc basis. So for me as an adjunct, this whole course, and I think the department's costs together and the benefit to the students will be greatly enhanced by having gone through this textbook reduction camp. And I would encourage anybody else who's in my department who's trying to convey a lot of business law to take a shot with using this kind of book. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. We also, you know, we try to add cases that are local. So you'll find that we add, you know, Drew Peterson, Blagojevich, and stuff like that. But it takes time to go research those and make sure that you've, back to my point about corroborating, make sure that we've done it in a legal way that we can use what we're citing. And we've done it in a correct way. We don't want to just like pull newspaper articles from the Tribune and produce fake news. So it takes time, and again, that's why I won't be ready for spring, and we'll be running starting next week with what we have. But I'm optimistic that we'll run 241 in the fall with this. Any questions?
What's the OER that you're using then? Did you split
Oh
it
yes,
into
I meant to
chapters?
show you that one. I got delayed. It's it's in my file section. It's by I got mine from the Saylor Foundation. And I wouldn't even say I got it, somehow corroborating with Sherry and Julie. And we've been hunting for this. So, and Mike set it up very well and in a legal way because he's working with me. With the, here's the chapters. And they're under files and they're PDFs. And then you saw them repeated in the modules of my class. Right at the beginning. So if you're taking this in 8 weeks, you read 4 chapters. If you're taking it in 16 weeks, you read 2 chapters a week. But I thought it was a great, I'll show you, let me just show you a chapter, how different it is. If you were to compare it to what modules I ran with at the end of each chapter, let me see if I can get to an end of a chapter. You can see that it has takeaways and exercises. We didn't have that before. And then it has, you know, objectives up at the beginning. So my challenge at the beginning of the week was making sure that the objectives of this book match the course objectives that we have, and that it all worked. But and again, then some of the ancillary activities that I've been offering over the years, I've put up, you know, to reinforce their exercises. And again, other professors can sort out and say, do I want the textbooks exercises or I want Mary's exercises? But we have all of this in a repository so everybody can move forward on all of this.